Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good afternoon. I am Pamela Furr in for Matt Murphy. The last I heard, the man is in New Orleans, and that was 24 hours ago that I heard that. So God only knows where young Matt Murphy is today. Is he in the ninth? What is it? The ninth quarter? Is that what you say? The ninth ward? Something like the ninth parish. Where's all the crazy? Where's all the bad stuff happen?
The French Quarter.
The French Quarter. That's it. The French Quarter. Who knows? But anyway, he's off the rest of this week, so I'll be in with you. We really have a great show today. In my opinion, I want you to be listening at 105. Why listen at 105? Well, here's a hint for you.
Imagine a world where no music was.
Oh, Lord. Does that get any better? No. The King, George Jones. Now, obviously, he's passed away, so George Jones will not be in the studio with us. But his wife, Nancy Jones, will be in studio along with Ken Abraham to talk about a brand new book that's out called Playing Possum. Nancy Jones, married to the man for 30 years. She knows a lot about the history of George Jones. Man, I'm sorry. I got to stop for a minute. You know, there was scandal back in the day, but there was also redemption. So we'll talk to them about that book, Playing Possum, at 105 this afternoon. Yes, sir. You about to talk to me?
Are we going to discuss the lawnmower races?
We'll talk about the lawnmower races. We'll talk about the alcohol. We'll talk about a lot of things. We'll talk
I think the lawnmower races might have had something to do with the alcohol, or the alcohol might have had something to do with the lawnmower races.
Well, you remember, for the longest time, there was a Lexus that sat outside on like this cement block, right? And I think even hoisted up in the air by a dump truck. Do y'all remember that on Old Hickory Boulevard in Brentwood? Do you remember seeing that? That was George Jones' Lexus that he crashed and almost died at that time. So we'll talk about that and just a whole lot of other things, and more importantly about the redemption, not only of George Jones, but Nancy Jones too. It's really a wonderful, wonderful story. He is missed in this town, I can tell you that, in this music community. And I would encourage some of you youngsters who don't know much about George Jones to find out. There was a special on Showtime about George and Tammy Wynette that was pretty dang good, although there might be some historically inaccurate things in it. It was great as far as the series goes. Check that out if you get a chance. But that's coming up today at 105. In the meantime, as you heard on the Chris Hand Show, there is an individual. I'm not even going to play her audio, but we're going to now have to hear her mouth from now on until November 2024. And that's Tennessee State Senator Gloria Johnson. She has decided that we knew it was coming, that she's going to run for U.S. Senator here in the state of Tennessee. Now, in my opinion, she does not stand a snowball's chance in you-know-where of winning. I respect her right to run. There's no way she's going to win. Now, I don't know. I think there is a Democrat that's also running, so there will have to be a primary. I think Gloria Johnson will win that primary hands down simply because of name recognition. Not only name recognition, but the money that she's going to get outside of the state of Tennessee, by the way. She's going to get a ton simply because she decided to glom on to the two Justins when they decided to go national by calling out the Tennessee legislature for what they believe is racist activity, right? So Gloria Johnson glommed onto that. Why? To get name recognition. Why? Because she wanted to run for U.S. Senator. That's what I believe. Now, she's in Nashville right now making her announcement. She started in Knoxville, where she's from, making her announcement. She's hitting here, and then she's going to head to Memphis to make an announcement there, all for name recognition. I'll tell you why I mean, there's a list of things, but I'll tell you why Gloria Johnson is not suitable as a candidate for the U.S. Senate.
Are we sure that she's going to be able to make these appearances? Has she been barricaded on the House floor or anything to where she's not allowed to leave? Are we clear that she can leave?
To my knowledge, she was not barricaded in Knoxville, and to my knowledge, she has not been barricaded today in Nashville. She should be fine.
But
to my knowledge.
Only to your knowledge. Okay.
Yeah. Now, there may be video showing that she's not being barricaded in, but that doesn't mean she wasn't.
Can we have somebody from the state trooper's office make sure she hasn't been kidnapped?
Well, look, this is a position, U.S. Senate, it's a position that demands strong leadership, effective representation, and a commitment to the values that Tennesseans hold dear. I think I heard this on the Chris Hand show not long before he left, where a caller said, look, the representative is supposed to be representing the people. The senators represent the interest of the state. Do you, for 1 minute, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but it has to be said, do you think for 1 second that Gloria Johnson is going to represent the interests of the state of Tennessee? Are you kidding me? She's going to represent the interests of Gloria Johnson. Period. End of discussion. It's also essential to recognize that Senator Johnson's track record and policy positions are misaligned with the values and priorities of the people of Tennessee. She's consistently advocated for policies that are completely out of touch with the needs and aspirations of the state of Tennessee. For instance, one of the most glaring concerns is Senator Johnson's stance on economic policy. She's supported policies that would burden our state with higher taxes, excessive government regulation. Her proposals, such as an increased government control of health care and the push for a higher minimum wage, would harm small businesses, would stifle economic growth, and ultimately hurt the very people that she claims to represent. It would ultimately hurt the state that she would be representing if by some miracle she ended up being U.S. Senator from the state of Tennessee. We deserve a senator who understands the importance of limited government, lower taxes, a pro-business environment that promotes job creation and economic prosperity. Do we not? Furthermore, Senator Johnson's approach to health care is problematic. She has been a vocal proponent of a government-run single-payer health care system, or as some call it, Medicare for all.
You mean the same people that have put us $32 trillion in debt running healthcare? What could go wrong?
Exactly. Let's look at her stance on, national security and law enforcement. She's been critical of our law enforcement agencies here in the state of Tennessee, including troopers, the men and women in blue, and has shown support for defunding the police, an idea that has been widely rejected by the majority of the people in this country and the majority of the people here in the state of Tennessee. We need a senator who will prioritize safety and safety of our communities. We need a senator who will support men and women in uniform who risk their lives to protect us. And by the way, that also includes men and women in military uniforms. What about her stance on open borders and our lax immigration? I can't say it. Immigration. I'm not having a stroke. Immigration enforcement. It's 100% out of step with a majority of Tennesseans. And it would not represent the best interests of the state at all. We should have secure borders. I'm having a problem with words today. And a fair and orderly immigration system that respects the rule of law. She doesn't represent that. She's the opposite of that. Her positions on immigration disregard the need to protect our national sovereignty and uphold the principles of legal immigration that have made our country strong. Why in the world would anybody vote for Gloria Johnson? I don't care if you are a Democrat. Hear me now, Democrats. She's only in this for herself. Watch how she danced during our last general session and this last special session. I am not a fan of Justin Jones or Justin Pearson. But at least they stood on their own 2 feet, and I don't mean that badly, but they stood on their own 2 feet with their own beliefs. I mean, I can respect them for that. I think they're wackadoo, but it's their own. She just glommed on. She's a coattail hanger on to her. She rides coattails.
What the hell is that?
That's what she does. So why in the world would you as a Democrat want to vote for her? What has she done for you lately in the state of Tennessee besides cause more division? Look, I understand the Republicans hold the majority. Not just the majority, the supermajority in the state of Tennessee. I get that. But there comes a time, if you're on the other side of the aisle, you've got to figure out a way to come to the table to try to get things done on behalf of the people that you represent. Do you not? And screaming and yelling and telling lies is not the way to do it. Even Democrats in the state of Tennessee want to be able to walk safely down our streets, have children go to school and feel safe. I mean, we all have those same desires for our life. We just disagree with how to get there. So find a way. You really want to be a stateswoman? Find a way to come to the table where we can have conversations about the best way to represent Tennessee. And she doesn't do that. Her actions show that she doesn't do that at all. She doesn't stand a snowball's chance. But holy smokes, we're going to have to hear her for the next year and a couple of months. Get ready. And get ready for your Stacey Abrams and your Barack Obamas and your money from your George Soros kinds of groups to be packing it in here in Tennessee. We'll take your money. We're not going to vote for her. Get ready for ads on TV and on radio and on your social media links. Look, I haven't watched live TV, with the exception of sports, in a long, long time. But they have found a way for those ads to pop up that are current on the craziest places like, FUBU and VMU and all of those places. I'm joking, by the way, guys. Digital buys, they're going to be everywhere. You're going to see it, whether you like it or not. Because for her to win, she's going to have to convert conservatives, Republicans, rhinos, all independents, all of the above. It ain't going to happen, but she's going to try. She's going to try. So be ready. All right. It's 12:20. I do believe. I'm Pamela Furr in for Matt Murphy on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I'm Pamela Furr. In for Matt Murphy. Glad to have you with us today. Don't forget at 1:05, Nancy Jones will be in studio with me to talk about the legend George Jones and a new book that she has out. Did he not want to go on? I'm sorry. This is a little inside baseball, but
No, I had actually texted him and
okay.
I told him what I said on the air.
All right, gotcha. Inside baseball. So let's just say a politician called. We'll just leave it at that. So I didn't know if it's a he, if he wanted to go on or not. I would have gladly put him on. So let's get back to Gloria Johnson for a minute. I'm getting some super texters. By the way, you can call 615-737-9986. That's the number, 615-737-9986. Would love to hear from you about Gloria Johnson. But one of the super texters made this point, and it is a valid point. And I believe this too. Now, I'm saying that she doesn't stand a snowball's chance in where of winning the U.S. Senate seat here in the state of Tennessee. She's too divisive. She's too, can I say it? She's too crazy. I said it. That's right. I said it. So if that is the case, then blow her off. Well, she's going to have a lot of money poured in here. I wouldn't blow her off too much. Don't get too complacent, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because there are
I would actually disagree with you. I don't think she's going to have a lot of money poured in here.
You don't think so?
She can't win, and they're not going to waste the funding on that.
You don't think so?
No.
She seems to have a lot of support out there,
I think she does have a lot of support now because she's in office.
Not in the state of Tennessee, by the way. When I say she's got a lot of support out there, I mean in other states, other people.
But people are going to look at her possibilities and go, we can't waste money on that.
I hope so. That's what you got to hope. But I'm wondering if they see an opening based on the national attention that she's gotten. Now, I'm not a politico. I don't even play one on TV. I'm not a strategist. I just know you can't be too complacent ever when it comes to these things. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. Now, I know some folks earlier were critical of Marsha Blackburn. And I got to tell you, I think it's a little unjustified. If you want to call her a rhino, fine. There are those that think she's a rhino, whatever. But she's been a dedicated public servant for the state of Tennessee for a very, very long time. At the state level, and now, obviously, as a U.S. Senator. She, in my opinion, has worked tirelessly to represent the Vol state. She's been committed to her constituents, to what I think is her principled leadership, and to her unwavering dedication to the values that make this state one of the strongest states in the country. I think that she's been very accessible to her constituents here in Tennessee. She's been responsive to most of the needs of Tennessee, always putting our interests first. Now, there are those of you who are still very upset with how things went down on January 6th. And I'm not talking about the protests. I'm talking about the vote, where she vowed the night before all the crazy happened to vote to do an investigation into, and I can't remember which state she was going to do it. I can't remember which state. There was a senator and a representative together to say, we need these electoral college votes investigated. There's shenanigans going on in this state. There was a plan that the Republicans had to call for an investigation. That plan got thrown by the wayside when the riots that I'll call protest, happened on January the 6th. That plan got flushed down the toilet. That plan went out the window when people started making their way through the Capitol building. And there are people who have not forgiven her for that. And I get that. But you have to look at the whole picture. And certainly in your unforgiveness, I would certainly believe that that would not cause you to vote for Gloria Johnson. What I fear is that it would cause you not to vote at all. And that's a dangerous place as well, in my opinion. She has consistently voted yes in the Senate for conservative values, has she not? She's been a strong advocate for national security, has she not? And a robust military, has she not? Fort Campbell will tell you the things that she has done for the base there and for the men and women in uniform there. She's a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee. So she has worked to make sure our men and women in uniform have the resources and support they need to keep our nation safe. That's an important committee to be on, especially if Fort Campbell is just right up the road. Regardless, I mean, obviously, you're free to vote how you want. You're free to think how you want. I just wanted to give my 2 cents on both of them in this first segment of the Matt Murphy Show. He's on vacation this week. I'm Pamela Furr, filling in on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Oh, you did forget to mention that when they asked Mitch McConnell what his opinion of her was, he said, who?
That's just wrong. That's just... Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 12:35. I'm Pamela Furr in for Matt Murphy. Glad to have you on board today. As I told you earlier, we have a special guest coming in with us at 105 today. That's Nancy Jones. She'll be here. She'll be talking about her husband, the one, the only George Jones.
Let me, baby, just to kind of hang around. I'll always
I missed that voice on radio, y'all. Can you tell?
I'll never love another.
I like pure country music. I love the classics and I love George Jones. But there's more to the story of George Jones than just his music. It's his legendary stories of drinking, women, of tractors, what else? And of car crashes. No-show Jones. All of that. So we're going to talk about it at 105.
He was Axl Rose before Axl Rose.
Was popular? Yeah, no kidding. Anyway, so we're going to, and you know what? When he died, there were a lot, this town mourned for a while when he passed away. Anyway, so we'll talk about all of that at 105. Meanwhile, we need to look at the 2024 election. And there's a reason why. There is a ploy afoot, if you will, when it comes to state ballots. Now, right, everybody understands how elections work. It's the parties that decide who goes on the ballots, and then each state has to determine, what the rules are for getting on the ballot, right? So it's states. That's what we argued about on January the 6th. It's the states that send their electoral college to D.C., and then that's who determines who becomes the president of the United States. They vote on it. It's a done deal, and you have your new president, or a president is reelected. So there is a clause, if you will. It's the 14th Amendment that people keep talking about and keep throwing it out there. Well, the president will be disqualified to run because of the 14th Amendment. And I wanted to read the actual amendment, the entire amendment, to really wrap my head around what we're talking about. It says, no person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state who, having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or as a member of any state legislature or as an executive or judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution of the United States shall have engaged in, doesn't say convicted of, doesn't say anything but, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. Now, there's one part that the Democrats don't read, by the way. And, reading that part, it kind of gives me pause, and I'll tell you why in a second. But here's the last part of that section. But Congress may vote of 2/3 of each house to remove such disability. So Congress could act, right? All right, but it has to be 2/3 of each house. Now, that's the way I read that. If it's wrong, please somebody correct me. Now, there is a move afoot to have states keep Donald Trump off the ballot. Now, if that happens, they could win. Now, we know he's going to win the primary, right? Hands down, he will be the Republican nominee for president of the United States. Unless something crazy happens in the next couple of months, that's the way it's looking. If it were today, he would be the nominee for the Republican Party. So now let's get down to the general election. There are some say he can't win. There are some that say you're counting him out. There are polls out there that have him neck and neck with Joe Biden. And that's scary to the Democrats. That's scary to the Republicans, too. So now there's a move afoot that could make it interesting. Before any votes are cast in the 2024 presidential election, Donald Trump could face a legal battle on multiple fronts over whether he even has the right to be on the ballot. There are liberal groups who are stepping up efforts to disqualify the former president based on the 14th Amendment, a post-Civil War provision of the 14th Amendment. I just read that to you under Section 3. Here's the thing. If you have a Democrat state who has a Democrat Secretary of State, they could decide that they believe Donald Trump participated in an insurrection, therefore he does not qualify for the ballot in the general election. And if that happens, Donald Trump could be in trouble. Let's just be honest. Now, if that happens, you're also looking at a lot of people who would be very, very angry about that. They argue Trump is ineligible for the presidency because he took the oath of office and, quote, engaged in insurrection or rebellion, or, quote, gave aid or comfort to the enemies. Election officials around the country are actually considering how to navigate that issue, which could be decided on a state-by-state basis. The issue has already come to the forefront in states including Arizona, Michigan, and New Hampshire. Some nonprofits, including Free Speech for People and Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, are moving forward with a push to get states on board with their argument and are preparing lawsuits to keep him off the ballot. Now that, more than anything else, is an interesting play. That right there, who cares about the high crimes, misdemeanors, all of it, these trials that he's being dragged into, kicking and screaming. They might get him, they might not get him. I don't know how he gets fair trials in any of that. But if you convince a Democrat state that is a battleground type state to keep him off the ballot, he won't have enough of the Electoral College to win. And that is what elects presidents. I see it as a problem. Noah Bookbinder. What a name. Noah Bookbinder, who's president and CEO of Crew, that's one of those nonprofits I told you about in a second ago, says Section 3 sets up this qualification that is in many ways no different than the qualification that you have to be 35 years old to be president and to be natural-born citizen. Trump wrote on Truth Social that this is a trick akin to election interference. I don't disagree with him. But it's a trick that could work. So his people have to be ready. Opponents of using the 14th Amendment against Trump argue that state election officials do not have the authority to bar candidates. Are you sure? I personally believe in states' rights. I don't think they should, but I do believe in the sovereignty of states. I'm that girl. They also contend that Trump did not engage in an insurrection, that Section 3 should not apply to a candidate before an election, and that an act of Congress is needed to enforce Section 3. Legal scholars have also raised questions about whether a former president who has never served in another office counts as an officer under the clause. See, that to me is also a good point. On January the 6th, he had already lost the election. So technically, he was president, but he was going to be gone, at the stroke of 11:59 a.m. on January the 20th, I do believe. In the battleground state of Michigan, Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson recently said, by the way, she's a Democrat, quote, there are valid legal arguments being made for keeping the former president off the ballot, and that is something she is discussing with election officials in other states. She told MSNBC that states will likely need to act in concert, if we act at all, regarding the constitutional challenges, and predicted the issue will ultimately be settled in the courts. In Arizona, here's some good news. Secretary of State Adrian Fontes, I think I'm saying the name right, Democrat, has said that he does not have the authority to bar Trump from the ballot, but that the question about Trump's eligibility is not settled. That's interesting to me. And people are talking about it. There is a move afoot. Keep your eyes open. We don't have to worry about that here in Tennessee. But we didn't have to worry about it in 2020 either. I mean, in other words, Trump won the state of Tennessee in 2020. Our future, though, was in the hands of the shenanigans that went on in battleground states. And we got stuck with Joe Biden. Sleepy Joe. 615-737-9986. Let's go to Billy in Nashville. Hey, Billy.
Hey, Pamela. All this is about, I know they want to keep Trump out of office because basically he's the one that opened up the people's eyes in the United States and was actually for the people. I feel like they're not only doing this just to try to hold Trump down, but to try to keep the people of the nation in line. And I feel that if they do something like this, that this could be a very good cause of a second revolution, which I would wholeheartedly agree with. I'm 65 years old. I don't know how much I do, but I would do everything I can. And that's another reason they try to get rid of our Second Amendment rights. The Second Amendment is not about owning a hunting rifle or something like that. The Second Amendment was written in case we ever needed to rise up against a tyrannical government again, and should be allowed to have any kind of firearm that the military has.
All right, but so we're getting off a little track here. But Billy, so here's the question. If you believe in states' rights, I'm assuming you do, and let's say that there are 4 battleground states, and those 4 battleground states decide that Donald Trump does not qualify to be on their ballot. I think people will be angry. I do think people will take to the streets, but then what? Do you know what I mean? I mean, then you can't control what those 4 states do.
I do believe in states' rights, but also I do believe that anybody that does believe in the states' rights, or anybody that is living in the states, should give any type of person any chance to run for any elected office, and there is in the United States of America, that 1 or 2 people in a state does not speak for everyone.
True, but if you're talking a Democrat state, they believe they're speaking on behalf of their people.
There's a lot of Democrats that don't believe in the wokeness of all that's going on in the Democratic Party, that just vote Democrat because that's what their parents did or their grandparents did.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that.
My parents voted Democrat. They were yellow dog Democrats in the South.
But that's a Southern Democrat. We're talking about Michigan here.
Yeah.
That's different. Completely different. All right, Billy, thank you very much for your phone call. 615-737-9986 is the phone number, 615-737-9986. You can also super text us. People are asking, well, what about writing in your vote? Well, I mean, you could, but if they have disqualified Donald Trump from being on the ballot, doesn't that also, and this is all this is speculation, by the way. No one has said definitively that they're going to try this, but there's now a little drumbeat in the background of this kind of thing possibly coming up. So if that is indeed the case, could you write them in? I think if you're disqualified, I think that would also disqualify you from being written in too. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how that works. But boy, did you ever think you would see the day that something like this would happen in this country? It's crazy. Crazy times, I tell you. It's 12:51. I'm Pamela Furr in for Matt Murphy on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 12:57. I am Pamela Furr in for Matt Murphy. Coming up at 1:05, we'll talk to Nancy Jones about her new book, Playing Possum, about her husband, George Jones. Ken Abraham also co-wrote the book. He'll be in studio as well, so be listening for that. I got to tell you, I am excited about that interview. Meanwhile, there are a lot of people talking about, and I've gotten all your super texts on this, about the 14th Amendment and how there is a move afoot of some states possibly using the 14th Amendment as an excuse to keep Donald Trump off the ballot. What do you say? Let's go to Chris, who is in Nashville. Hey, Chris. Chris, are you there? Are you there with me? Going once, going twice. All right, sold. States' rights are important. This is Texter 5548. States should have full discernment about what and how regarding in their state. This includes who they send to D.C. to represent the will of their people. But in regards to federal elections of POTUS, the process and details of it, should he, in accordance with the U.S. Constitution and interpretations of that, are the purview of the SCOTUS. Presidential ballots should be settled on a national level, and every state should be provided the same ballot and required to list the candidates accordingly. This is, again, Super Texter 5548. We'll see. Now, somebody also texted, typical liberal attitude. If you can win fairly, change the rules. You're probably right on that one. All right, we've got more to come. We've got news on the way. There was a ground stop, by the way, of United Airlines flights. I think they've lifted that ground stop, but you might want to check your flight if you're headed to the Nashville International Airport to see what your status is. All right, more to come on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
From ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. The White House says President Biden has tested negative so far for COVID. That after First Lady Jill Biden contracted COVID. Her office says she has mild symptoms. The White House says the president will wear a mask indoors. He'll host a Medal of Honor ceremony this afternoon. Later this week, he's scheduled to travel to the G20 summit.
President Biden is set to head overseas at the end of this week, traveling to India for a World Leaders Economic Summit and making a stop in Vietnam. The White House says he is still scheduled to make that trip, but he will be testing regularly for COVID and monitoring for symptoms. The president had COVID last summer and also got a rebound case. The First Lady also had COVID last summer. Karen Travers, ABC News, Washington.
United Airlines has put a nationwide stop on its flights. The FAA says United issued the ground stop due to a computer issue. Passengers at major United hubs like San Francisco and Chicago could face long delays trying to return from the Labor Day weekend. In Texas, the impeachment trial for Attorney General Ken Paxton has started. The state Senate holding the trial after state House lawmakers voted in May to impeach Paxton over accusations of bribery and abuse of his office. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who serves as the judge, gave state senators, the jury, some instructions.
In deliberations, the senator jurors will consider the following. Did the House managers prove beyond a reasonable doubt any article of impeachment against Attorney General, and if so, shall that article be sustained, which would result in removal from office? Therefore, it's a two-part question.
Thousands of people who did not leave Burning Man Festival yesterday after roads reopened from heavy rain and mud finally making it out of the Nevada desert. The mud-swamped grounds caused tens of thousands to shelter in place for days. Many speaking out now say it added to the week-long counterculture fest and free spirit event designed to make do with less. You're listening to ABC News.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 105. I am Pamela Furr, in for Matt Murphy on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Matt Murphy is on vacation this week. He'll be back on Monday. Isn't Monday 9/11? I think Monday is 9/11. So he'll be back on 9/11. 2023, so be listening for that. I goofed, Belle. I made a major faux pas. Now, already people are telling me to calm down. I've had a lot of coffee today, I admit it. But our guest that's supposed to be here at 1:05, it's actually not supposed to be here till 2:05. That's totally on me. I went back and looked at the messages.
You have to stop the Q-tip when there's resistance.
Right? So Nancy Jones and Ken Abraham will be in studio at 2 o'clock, not 1 o'clock. That is totally on me. And now I'm all embarrassed because I called going, where are you guys? Well, we're just getting ready to leave. What, you're not on the road? No. So I feel completely stupid.
Oh, bless your heart.
Exactly. I feel like Joe Biden right now. I feel like, I'm misremembering things. I feel like.
You want to see my temper? Keep going.
All right. Anyway, so that's coming up at 2:05 today. Be listening for that. And my apologies. That's totally on me. I don't know what I was thinking. By the way, we will have Dr. Mark Green, Congressman Mark Green, on the show tomorrow, along with Alice Rowley, who wants to be your mayor, Nashville. She wants to be your mayor. We're going to have her on again tomorrow. And then I have a guest on Thursday, but I can't. Let's see. Hold on, and I'll tell you. I have no one on Thursday yet. I apologize, but I do have an interview on Friday that I think is going to be pretty interesting. It's away from all this political talk that, trust me, we're going to have to talk about politics for the next year and the shenanigans going on and the cunning, cunning tricks that people are going to use to get Democrats in office, including maintaining the White House. We've got a whole year to talk about that. On Friday, we're going to talk about some historic stuff that happened. There's a reason why small towns these days get attention, because we as small towners stand up for what's right. We as small towners stand up for our neighbors, God, family, freedom, all of those things. Someone, though, wanted to turn the small town of Columbia into some racist hick town. Even though it does have a past, you have to wonder, I'm going to get a little spiritual here for a second. Trigger warning for those who don't like that. There is a scripture verse that says all things work together for good. And you have to wonder if these things didn't happen in Columbia, if we'd be where we are today. And let me explain. I know I've probably shared this before, but you can show a direct line between the Columbia race riots, and they happened, they're real, in Columbia, and rhythm and blues or R&B music. There was a gentleman years ago who worked at Castner Knott. Do y'all remember Castner Knott? Those who have only lived here for 20 years have no idea what I'm talking about. And honestly, I wasn't around when Castner Knott was downtown Nashville. I heard about it, but it used to be it's a department store, or was a department store. And they had a big office and a big department store downtown Nashville. And long story, let's try to get this. So long story, he was in sales at Castner Knott, but someone at a huge radio station, not ours. It was a huge AM station. This is in the 40s and 50s. 40s mostly. Hired this guy away from Castner Knott to sell the radio shows that were on this particular radio station. It's WLAC, it's AM station. But during that time, you'd turn it on at night and you could hear it all across the country. And there were DJs looking for a way to make a name for themselves, like everybody does on the radio, who decided to take the R&B music, and put it on the radio. Now, why? Long story. This guy at Kastner's knew about the race riots down there in Columbia, and we had, 3 newspapers at the time. We had the Tennessean, we had the Nashville Banner, and then there was one more newspaper whose name I can't think of right at this moment, but it was the Black newspaper at the time. So you had 3 newspapers who covered those race riots with 3 different sets of eyes. You had a conservative set, you had a liberal set, and you had the Black set of eyes talking about that race riot. And at that moment, this Kastner guy realized there was a huge market for Black listeners. And he could play Black music on the radio and pick up a whole new audience because he saw all those people who picked up the Black newspaper who wanted to know more information about the race riots down in Columbia. And it was for that reason that they would take the Black entertainers at the New Era Club here in Nashville. They'd take them from the stage and bring them over to WLAC and let them perform live. And those are folks like Little Richard, B.B. King, Aretha Franklin, nobodies. People you had not heard of before. And they'd come from the New Era Club over to WLAC and perform at night. And the phrase was coined rhythm and blues from that. So there's a direct line from the Columbia riots to a man who saw that there was an audience out there for music, for Black music, and that they would listen to the radio. If they're buying the newspapers, they'd listen to the radio. And that's how R&B began. Why do I say all this? So I've got the author of the book coming in studio to tell that story. She's going to tell it in a much better way. She's going to tell it in a fantastic, colorful way. And she's the granddaughter of the man who did that. Her name is Paula Blackman. E.G. Blackman was the guy. So we're going to talk to him on Friday. Or, I'm sorry, he's no longer with us. We're going to talk to the granddaughter on Friday about that. So, race.
That's at 3:05?
No, that is not. That is at 2:05. Maybe that's the one I booked at 1:05. I'm going to have to look. But I find that, is it just me? I find that interesting. And I find that, it's fun. I enjoy talking to people who are younger than me. I'm starting to experience those who blow me off because they think I'm old when I'm really not old. But it's fun to me to explore history, and it always has been. I mean, since I was very, very young. And it's fascinating for me to see the history of this town and how in this town industries were created. I find that fascinating. We live in the greatest town, little big town they used to call Nashville. It wasn't just a country act. It was what Nashville used to be called. Music City, the little big town. And how, again, industries were created, how lives were changed, millions were made, and dreams, American dreams were fulfilled right here. I love it. I think it's interesting. And plus, it's a diversion from all the crazy that's going on in our world these days. Do you hear in the distance? Do you hear a little drum beat in the distance? The drum beat of COVID. Do you hear it? Do you hear it? I have to be honest with you. A couple of weeks ago, Matt Murphy was talking about, there are cities and towns that are talking about bringing back mask mandates. And I'm going, what? Who's talking about that? Are you nuts? You're just trying to stir it up. Boy, was I wrong. They are they are talking about it. Now, mind you, COVID in certain forms, certain variants, was very dangerous. So I'm not taking away from the dangerousness. We know that all too well here at WTN, don't we? But we also believe in freedom, free choice, all of the above. If you want to wear a mask, you go for it. Now, over the weekend, Dr. Fauci, I don't know why anybody talks to him anymore, but Dr. Fauci, who is retired, made some comments. Made some comments about mask wearing and totally changed his tune yet again about masks and said something to the effect of, look, it's the individual wearing the mask that we're really concerned about, not the masses and mask mandates. Well, that's totally opposite of what he used to say. Now that the studies are coming out that the masks don't and didn't work. Luckily, here in the state of Tennessee, I think our legislature passed laws that say no one can pass a mask mandate anymore. Not here in the state of Tennessee. No one's going to, I'm paraphrasing, obviously. So that's good news. If you want to wear a mask, knock yourself out. If you want to wear a mask going into a hospital or a doctor's office because you don't want whatever that man's got, if it makes you feel better, you do it. My dad is 81 years old. He hasn't stopped wearing a mask. When he goes out in public, he puts a mask on when he's around a lot of people. And you know what? He's 81 years old, and if he wants to do that and it makes him feel better, go right ahead. My mother doesn't, but my mother doesn't go a lot of places either. If you want to get a vaccine, go knock yourself out. It's a free country. It's the mandating. It's the ordering, if I remember correctly, that we all had a problem with. And the truth of the matter is, the way I remember it, if I remember things correctly, and there's been some question about my memory in the last half hour, if I remember correctly, yes, it was under Donald Trump that we fast-tracked vaccines, but it was specifically for the elderly, was it not? It was the Biden administration who decided to start going after other age groups, all the way down to 2-year-olds, for crying out loud. It wasn't Donald Trump. It was Biden. Trump wanted it for the elderly, for the more susceptible. And I don't recall it being an order, you must get this vaccine. It's the Biden administration that had the quote, the so-called mandates. And then businesses and corporations, you must have a vaccine or you can't do this. You can't do that. That's how I recall. I don't think that's revisionist history. I believe that's the way that it was. I also know this. Tennessee, I think we're good. But if we didn't pass any kind of law, and they tried to do that again, I know in Tennessee, the majority of people would not comply. They'd look at you, laugh, and then go about their day. Excuse me, you have to wear this mask. Excuse me. The Tennessean will go, bless your heart, and just keep walking. And just keep doing business or going to school or going to work or whatever. Excuse me, you have to get this shot. Bless your heart, and just keep walking. The issues are most states aren't like the state of Tennessee. But I feel within my heart, last hour we talked about the 14th Amendment and how some states are investigating the possibility of keeping Donald Trump off the ballot in the states because of so-called insurrection participation. There was a point I was going to make, and I went blank. The bottom line is, if states are going to look at that, those same states are looking at possible mask mandates. Those same states are also looking at the possibility of revving up the rhetoric all the way up to election time so that mail-in ballots can apply again. I feel it coming, don't you? They're going to use any means necessary to keep Donald Trump off the ballot. So what do you do if that happens? That's the question. What do you do? Because if you keep him off those 4 battleground states that we're talking about, he won't win with the electoral vote. If you keep him off the ballot, what do you do? I don't know that my bottom line can survive another 4 years of Joe Biden. I know that my bottom line keeps moving to a place that I can't afford to live the way that I lived when Donald Trump was in office. It's getting harder and harder to afford the things that you need. It's getting harder and harder to afford the things that you want. It's getting harder and harder every day. Inflation's going up. The economy's in the crapper. In the job that I have outside of radio, I think you guys know this, I'm working for an organization called Americans for Prosperity. And I get to talk to people all across this country on the telephone, door to door, at events. And we all are feeling it. We're all feeling the pain at the pump. We're all feeling the pain at the grocery store. We're all feeling the pain when we are buying a new car, or even a used car for that matter, or paying rent or mortgage or whatever the case may be. We're all feeling the pain. And it has Bidenomics, things under Bidenomics, I can't afford things like I used to. We're all feeling it, and we're all concerned about it. I would venture to say this is no joke, and the hundreds of people I've spoken to so far across the country, it's only been about a month, the number one issue on their mind is inflation. The number one issue on their mind is the economy. Think about that heading into November 2024. We want more Bidenomics? How can a Democrat even say that? Because they're feeling the pain too, whether they want to admit it or not. It is 1:23. I'm Pamela Furr, in for Matt Murphy on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 1:27. I am Pamela Furr in for Matt Murphy. Glad to have you here today on this. It's Tuesday. It feels like a Monday, but it is indeed Tuesday, right? And I am hopped up on all kinds of coffee. Thank you, Just Love. Is this a free play? Just Love Coffee. I've had quite a bit today. Now, we are talking a little bit about COVID, if you will. The COVID drums that have been sounding in the background, right? Honestly, I think it is call me a conspiracy theorist if you want to, but I think it's an effort on behalf of Democrats to start sounding that alarm so that as we get closer to election time, they can pull out that COVID card, if you will. That's why we are very, very lucky, and I had forgotten all the details about this, but we are very lucky to be in the state of Tennessee because we did pass the COVID protection bill. I say we, our lawmakers passed the COVID protection bill, and it does include Davidson County and Nashville, statewide application. It bans vaccine mandates. It bans vaccine passports. It prohibits government entities from imposing mask mandates. That, guys, is why you should be thankful that we have a majority of Republicans at the state level here in the state of Tennessee, because it's not going to happen here again. But what if it happens in other states? I pray to Jesus above that they, quote, they in other states have the sense enough that God gave them not to try to pull that again. And if they try, that enough people would say, will not comply. Bless your heart, but no thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye. And go about your life and go about your business. I have a gut feeling that our country has learned enough. Even some of the deranged liberals, hopefully, have learned their lesson by now. And maybe I'm just too hopeful. People think I'm a little nuts for believing in people that much. I can't help it. 615-737-9986. I am Pamela Furr in for Matt Murphy on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 1:35. I'm Pamela Furr in for Matt Murphy. Glad to be with you today. Can everybody hear in their headphones? Are you good to go? Let's see. I'm going to reach in studio, by the way, is Nancy Jones and Ken Abraham. Your mics are on. Let me turn you. There should be a button right under there. Do you feel it? That should have volume for you. All right. We are. So I got it messed up. I thought we said 105. I am so sorry. But you guys, Nancy Jones was married to George Jones, the legend, for more than 30 years. That just blows my mind. Blows my mind. But I'm glad you guys are in the studio. There's a new book out called Playing Possum. And it's your story of living your life with George Jones.
Correct.
Are there lots of things we're going to be surprised at when we read this?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, you will be. Well, the thing about it is that I just said, hey, I think it's time the fans know the truth and how George really was. So that was why that I wanted to write this book. I mean, we never know today or tomorrow, whenever we're gone,
That's
so
true.
I wanted the book out there so that they would really know the real George Jones.
Well, the real George Jones for me was someone who could croon a tune better than anybody, I think, ever in the business, like this one.
Imagine.
Oh, yeah. I mean, now I have chills.
Who wouldn't?
And this is the live version, too, And then one of my favorite songs that he does, a dear friend of mine, you know him well, Billy Yates wrote Choices.
Oh, I love it.
I mean, that is such a great song. But there was more. I mean, George Jones had a lot of demons, and I think we're all kind of familiar with those demons. You are more familiar on a personal note. Well, let's just ask some questions. How did you meet George Jones, and how long ago?
Well, I met George Jones through a girlfriend of mine, and she was dating one of his managers, and she just begged and pleaded, please go with me to New York. And I'm like, I don't want to go. My gosh, I was into Creedence Clearwater.
Yeah.
I wasn't into George Jones. Didn't even know who George Jones was. And so she kept on, and I said, okay, I'll go with you, but I'm not sleeping with him. She said, you don't have to. You don't have to. I promise. We'll get adjoining rooms. And we did, and the man stayed up all night long in my room telling me things that I felt like that he had never, ever told anyone. It was like he had so much on his mind he wanted to get it out. Mm-hmm. And I guess I was a good listener.
You're a good listener, and so that's what started it all. Interesting. And then y'all have been together ever since that night?
Well, let's do this. I was going to go back home that Sunday, and he said, you're not going. I said, you crazy. I got a job. I got 2 girls. I am leaving. And he said, no, you're not. Well, got ready to go to the airport. And Merle Kilgore, you remember him?
I do.
He was there. He's
yes.
taking us to the airport. And he said, George, you going? He said, nope. And she ain't going either. I said, well, I am. So I leave. He didn't come with us. And I'm flying commercial forever to get home. When I get home, there is a strange car in my driveway. The man had chartered a plane, leased a car and sitting in my driveway, and he never left.
Oh, my gosh. Wow. That is hilarious. These days we call that stalking, I think. Yeah.
George knew a good thing when he saw her.
Yeah, he did. He did. And you've been with him ever since. Now, there are stories after stories about George Jones. I mean, he has the reputation of no-show Jones. He has the reputation of getting on a tractor and driving to the liquor store because somebody was at you. Yeah, lawnmower. Was it you that took his keys away? I mean, there's all these stories, but the truth of them, I mean, he seemed like there's a good man in there. Am I wrong about that?
Oh, honey, you are 100% right. It was a good man, and no, I was not one of the wives for the lawnmower. It was in Biter, Texas. It's been told that he did it in Franklin, he did it in Lakeland, Florida, only one time, and it was in Biter, Texas, and Shirley, his wife at that time, had called his brother-in-law, which we called Uncle Dub, the sweetest man ever. And she was like, I can't handle it anymore. I'm leaving. So she leaves, and he sits there and goes upstairs and says, "You're going to stay in this room till you sober up." He locked him in the room, went back downstairs, fixed him a big old pot of coffee, and he said, and the next thing he goes to check on him again, and George was gone. He done got on that riding lawnmower and heading to a liquor store.
That's funny. But at the same time, it's not. I mean, we laugh now, but the truth is he had an addiction problem.
Yes, he did.
And he had demons that I guess he was trying to drown with the alcohol.
Not one, a bunch of them.
Yeah. Tell me about those demons. Where did all of that come from?
Well, you know, since you are from Nashville and you know a lot of the stories of George Jones, people was like leery of him, you know. Oh, God, here comes George. He's drunk again. He's going to want to fight, or he's going to do this and that. So
because he wasn't a friendly drunk. He would get mean.
No. He was a mean drunk.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, like the first drink, he was funny. Second drink, you could tell a little difference. Third drink,
it was like a light switch.
Right. That's when the demon said, we'll show y'all what we can do. But he even lived in his car for a long time. Because where was he going to go? Everybody was like, he'll tear your house up. He'll do this. But it was just like somebody that needed to be saved. It was somebody crying for help. And he didn't know how to do it.
Yeah. Fame didn't help him. Money didn't help him.
Nope.
All the women, the booze, none of it helped. Music, none of it helped.
Nope.
Well, how did he stop? Because he eventually stopped.
When you read the book, you'll see a lot of the things that I got rid of. Like everybody in this town knows that he had an old man and he had a duck that he made friends with. In his mind, they were real. So you'll read in there how I got rid of those people. They're not people; they were imaginary people. But it kept him with company. And the thing is that he really wanted to be a good person, but he couldn't fight those demons. So I think the good Lord sent me there and said, you know, this is why you're here. And you can read whenever. I think he started on me when I was a little girl. And I carried it on all the way out until I fought those demons with him. And I'm going to tell you, it was not easy. Once you thought one was gone, there was another and another.
Well, how is it? Because we have a little bit of a history. I used to work for a business manager here in town that was y'all's business manager. Right. And I remember even then, so many people had so much respect for you. Did you have a music business background at all? You ended up, basically managing his career.
I did, but I had no business.
None.
With music at all. What I got, and I have to say it was from George, and he was a very smart man. And he knew all of these things and taught me and said, you don't forget this one, don't forget that. And it was so funny because Rick Blackburn that had CBS when I was coming into town, they'd always say, "Oh, Lord, here comes that wild woman." So I would just hurry, run upstairs and try to talk to Rick Blackburn and get things straightened out that George had already messed up because he was his worst enemy. And I was just friends with everyone, and I hope and I think that they all still love me.
I think so. I think you still have a great reputation in town. I think so.
Absolutely.
Well, there was let's talk about this. There was an accident. I remember when this happened. I want to say it was 1999, I think.
Correct.
There was an accident. And the wrecked car was on display down in Brentwood for quite a while. But I remember getting the news that George Jones had been in a bad accident, and it was near I-65.
Yeah, Carl P. Mayfield put that up there.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
The way I read it in the book, because I didn't know anything about the day until I read this in the book. He was on the phone with a daughter when it happened. Yeah. Tell that story.
He was on the phone with Dina, and it was that's when Choices came out. He loved that song.
Yeah.
But in Alexis, now if you wanted to hear a song, you could not be on the telephone because that would cut off, so you were talking.
Right.
He didn't understand that. Did not understand
Was he one
that.
of those that didn't have a smartphone? He had the flip phone.
He had the
and,
flip phone.
Yeah.
You are correct. And he didn't understand that. So when it would shut off, well, he was screaming and hollering and carrying on, and then he would, get it back on. Well, he was trying to get it back on whenever he was not watching the road, and ended up hitting that bridge.
And almost died.
Yes.
I mean, it was a serious wreck.
It was.
Yeah.
And then we discovered, which I think at the time, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of people thought he had sobered up by then. He hadn't.
Well, the thing is that he didn't do the Jack Daniels and the whiskey and stuff, but he thought, which I knew that he was still drinking, but he thought that doing those little bitty bottles of vodka that you get on the airplane, that nobody could smell it. Well, I smelled it. I knew exactly what he was doing.
Yeah.
So I checked every boot, every coat, every pocket there was in the cars and everywhere else. I'd find him and throw them out.
Yeah.
So then he had a little friend that lived out there rent-free, kept him supplied with the little bitty bottles, and that's where the drinking was still going on.
Happening.
Yes.
And so the doctors came to you and said, we don't think he's going to make it.
He came to me in the emergency room, said, he's not going to make it. I said, I know he's not, as long as you're sitting here talking to me. Go and save that man. He's worth saving.
Yeah. And he was.
And the funniest thing is that doctor, he said, because the media was everywhere, he said, I'm going on vacation, and I hope I don't ever hear George Jones's name again.
Because the media were hounding the doctor.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So when the doctor went on vacation and came back, he came to me and said, you're not going to believe this. He said, I am on an island so far away, and there's no TV, and on my bed was I Live to Tell It All, George's book. He said, so I read the whole thing.
Couldn't get away
Too
from it.
funny.
Pamela, he had a thing about seatbelts too. George wouldn't wear a seatbelt.
No.
Go ahead and tell him that.
He would not wear a seatbelt. He said, if they're going to find me, they're going to have to work on getting me. Well, they did work on getting him out of there, but he would take a seatbelt and put it in the back and fasten it so it wouldn't be ding, 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 you know. I'm like, okay, one of these days, buddy, you're going to have a bad wreck and you're going to wish you would have had him. He did not have it.
And he went all the way under the dash.
Yeah.
Wow.
Had to have the jaws of life to get him out.
Yeah. And did I read that you guys, you ran to where the sirens were to get to him and could see him in the car?
Oh, yeah. I was on the front porch when I could hear the sirens going on and off. And so I run down and nestle down there. And you can't I had the car and you couldn't get out because his traffic was so backed up. So I just parked the car and I ran all the way to that bridge.
Wow.
Ain't no way I can do that now.
No, not now.
Well, we've got more. It's let's see, it's 12 minutes to 2 o'clock. Let's take a break here. Ken Abraham is in the studio along with Nancy Jones, the wife of George Jones for more than 30 years. A brand new book out called Playin' Possum. It's available now, yes? All right. So anywhere you buy your books these days, you can find Playin' Possum, where there are lots of stories in there. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that when we come back. I'm Pamela Furr in for Matt Murphy on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 1:55. So this next segment will be really short, but Nancy and Ken Abraham are going to stay with us for the next half hour as well to just tell some great stories about George Jones, the possum George Jones. I will never forget his funeral service. That was so beautiful and so heartbreaking when all of that went down. I mean, it was a sad day. But in our last segment, we were talking about the accident that happened in 1999 where he somehow or another ran into a cement wall. Isn't that concrete?
It was a bridge.
Yeah, the bridge there on I-65. He almost didn't make it. He almost did not make it. Tell me what happened right after that. I mean, I'm told that's what changed his life. That's what turned him around.
Point, yeah.
Exactly.
It was on Highway 96, though. It was really close to where Nancy and George lived.
Mm-hmm.
He was almost home.
So it wasn't 65.
No.
It was Highway 96.
Right.
Okay.
Well, he died also in the helicopter.
No kidding.
Yes.
Because they life flighted him from there to Vanderbilt.
Yep. And they said he died, but they brought him back. And to me, it's kind of like when I died, God wasn't through.
Mm.
I mean, but whenever he did come home from the hospital, he was still not, he was so weak and so very bad off. And so one day we were walking and on our property, that we had a little bridge there. And he said, listen, I said, you got to walk, George, you got to walk. So we was walking there and he said, got so far, he looked at me and said, you're going to have to go get the golf cart. I can't walk any further. I said, I'll go get it. You sit down right here on this bridge. While I was walking away from him, I heard him say, God, if you get me through this, I'll never drink again. I'll never have another cigarette. And I will be the husband that my wife wants.
Wow.
And guess what?
He did.
This time I believed him.
Yeah.
All the times he ever said that I won't do it again. I promise I'll quit. This time I knew he was telling the truth, and he never, ever touched another drink, another cigarette after that.
Wow. How old was he when that happened?
He died in 99. So
he was 81 when he died. So
Yes.
it'll be 1999. So that'd be 14 years earlier.
Yeah, so holy smokes. So
mathematicians
here.
So
think about that, though. Think about that. He changed his life at that age, which I think is a lesson for all of us. You're never too old to change your life.
Nope.
To turn your life around. Let's hope it doesn't take an accident like that to get our attention. But boy, things like that can do that. All right, I tell you what, we're going to have to, we're up against the clock here. So I want you guys to stick around. We're going to keep Nancy Jones in the studio, and we're going to keep Ken Abraham, who helped her write this book, Playing Possum. And then we're going to give you details about an upcoming event where you can see, it was the Playing Possum concert, right? Out of Huntsville, Alabama.
Yes.
A lot of your favorites singing Playing Possum, October the 17th. I'll give you more details on that coming up. Also, where you can get this book. When we come back, let's have some fun. I want to hear some of the fun stories from George Jones. I want to hear who his favorite singer really was. I want to hear some of that stuff too, because it's all in the book, right? And some good stuff. All right, we're going to talk about it. Stick around. I'm Pamela Furr, in for Matt Murphy. News is next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
You want that other headphone on there, Nancy?
It is 2 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Right now, 90 degrees. And folks, wow. Afternoon got real rainy. Thunderstorms chances the rest of this afternoon into the evening. Complete weather forecast just a few minutes away. First Lady Jill Biden has tested positive for COVID-19. The White House says President Biden tested negative for COVID last night and today and will test regularly this week and monitor for symptoms. Here's White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre.
The First Lady is experiencing mild symptoms and will remain in Delaware for the week. President Biden tested negative last night for COVID-19 and tested negative again today. He's not experiencing any symptoms.
And Jean-Pierre went on to go talk about the protocol for President Biden as far as masking is concerned. She said that he'll be masking while indoors and around people in alignment with the CDC guidance. Over here in Tennessee, State Representative Gloria Johnson holding a press conference across Tennessee today to announce her candidacy for U.S. Senate against the incumbent Marsha Blackburn, who was elected to the Senate in 2019. As the Democratic representative for District 90 in Knoxville, Johnson recently made headlines on the floor of the State House chamber for encouraging protesters to fight for gun reform. Johnson will be in Nashville today at noon in front of Central High School. And still no capture of the inmate who escaped from a prison in Pennsylvania last week. Authorities have expanded the search area after they say he was spotted on camera south of the search perimeter. Police say 34-year-old Danilo Cavalcante was convicted of killing his ex-girlfriend. Here's more from Trevor Alt.
This is not the first time that Cavalcante has been spotted. However, what authorities announced today is that this trail cam that captured him is outside of what was their contained search area. Every other spotting so far sighting through the weekend has been within 1 to 2 miles of the prison. This one was just to the south end of the area that law enforcement had cornered off a little bit.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 2:04. Now 2:05. I'm Pamela Furr, and for Matt Murphy, who is on vacation this week. I'm filling in for him. Glad to be with you. I decided that I wanted to have this lady on the air to tell her story about George Jones. We were just talking. First of all, let's play a little music from Mr. George Jones.
I've had choices since the day that I was born. There were voices.
I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. And we were reminiscing in the commercial break just a few minutes ago about the day that George Jones was laid to rest. Are you able to hear? Nancy Jones is in the studio along with Ken Abraham. Glad to have you both in here. But you're welcome. We were reminiscing about the day that he was laid to rest. I mean, it was such a wonderful funeral service. But I didn't know, you were telling me as the procession was going through town, that actually they closed down the roads. They closed as if a president was coming through town. You were telling me that.
Oh my God, that was so true.
Get a little. There you go.
That was true. And the thing is that they don't do that unless the president's in town.
Right.
And then you have people lined up on the road with taking their caps off, taking their hats off, saluting George in that hearse. And you don't think there wasn't some crying going on then?
Yeah. And that was just where he passed away in 2013. Is that right?
2013.
Yeah,
Yes.
2013. So that wasn't, this is 10 years ago.
Right.
10 years ago. Amazing. I remember how emotional, there were so many artists that performed at his service, and how emotional, like Vince Gill got when he was singing his song.
With Patty.
Go rest high in that mountain.
Go
Yeah.
rest high. He couldn't get through it. I remember that.
That's right.
Anyway, enough of the sad.
Let's get happy.
Let's tell some fun stories. Now, is it true, and this may have been before your time, I don't know, it was before I moved to Nashville, but is it true that he used to own a lingerie shop downtown? I was told that it was a venue where they could sing, where country artists could sing downtown, and then there was a lingerie shop right next door, and that he owned the building.
Are you talking about Possum Holler?
Maybe.
There was a Possum Holler, but I mean, they had like a gift shop. They had,
but it wasn't a lingerie shop.
No.
All right, so now I'm corrected on that one. Tell some other stuff. I know there are all kinds of stories. He and Waylon and Wright would run around and tell stories on each other, I'm sure. Johnny Cash, I put them all kind of in the same category. Tell me some stories.
Well, with Johnny Cash, he never called George.
He didn't.
Was Little Pal.
Little Pal. How about that?
Correct.
All right.
Never did he ever say George Jones. And Waylon, Lord, I love that man. He was a nut. But he always would tell George, here's Waylon talking, as messed up as George was, and he'd say, George, you got to straighten up, man. You got a good woman here. You got to have to get your life together. And I'd say, yeah, you need to get yours together, too.
Well, I was going to say, Waylon was just about as bad as George, was he not?
I know it. But there is a
Put
story.
a muzzle on it, George. Put a muzzle on her.
Oh, that's what he would tell me. I'd be over there just preaching to Waylon. He'd look at George, and he'd put that big old hand on the top of my head and turn it around. I'm like, stop it. And he'd tell George, put a muzzle on her mouth. But there is some cute things in there with George and Waylon. Maybe we ought to leave that one for the book, because it's really funny. It's not funny, but it really is funny. Yeah, you will enjoy it.
Well, I know that we were talking about how George turned his life around. What people may not know, and I didn't know until the book, that the strength behind the man, the woman behind the man. I know just from working in the business that you kept him straight from a business standpoint. What I didn't know is that you almost died 2 years ago.
I did.
And what people may not realize is that you were in the hospital with COVID at Williamson Medical Center probably about a week and a half after our Phil Valentine died, with the same strain, it sounds like, because you've lost quite a bit of lung capability. Am I correct? I mean, you're having
I lost
issues.
60% of my lung, and all my hair fell out. Even my skin was falling off in the bed. And I also just got down to 92 pounds.
And you weren't a big woman anyway.
Well, I wasn't this skinny. But I got down to 92 pounds. You could set me up, and I couldn't sit by myself. I'd just flop over.
Flop over, no kidding.
And it was just
you were in ICU.
Yes,
Yeah.
and the thing about it is you get in the shape that I was in, you do a lot of thinking and you do a lot of praying. And I remember things that I would sit there and talk to God about.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, you know, kind of like George, if I get out of here, I'm bringing people to you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I want to do. I want people to know we're in a mess right now. This world is.
That's the truth.
Oh, there's so much going on out there. But, you know, you can bring yourself to God just like I did. And you will feel so much better. I feel lighter. I can look at people and say, you know, can I pray with you?
Mm.
And I don't know. I don't know if it's a gift that God has given me now. But I you know, they had the MTSU.
Mm-hmm.
George, they preach up there. They do the music there.
Right.
So if you...
They have a class.
They have a class.
Gotcha.
George
They have a
Jones class
George Jones class
at
at
MTSU,
MTSU. No
yes.
kidding.
I get to preach and I go on preaching here. But yeah, at MTSU.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Holy smokes. That's pretty cool, actually. All right, continue. I'm sorry.
So,
I'm blown away
I
by
go
that.
there once a year.
I want to take that class.
Oh, you'll love it. His name's Odie, and Odie's so good. But
Professor Odie.
I go there once a year, and he wants me to speak to the people in that class.
As youngsters.
And when I went, there was one little girl that I don't know. It was like I was drawn to her.
Mm-hmm.
And she was not at first listening. And then all of a sudden, I saw her put her phone down. And she was all into everything I was saying. And afterwards, I looked over there and she was crying. So I went to her and I said, "Are you okay?" And she said, "I have never listened to a speech in my whole life, but I did yours. And I want to tell you, just this little bit, you just changed my life."
Wow. And you thought you were going to be just talking about George Jones that day.
George Jones and the good Lord.
And the good Lord. How about that?
Yeah.
All right, I didn't know that. I'm going to have to check out that class. Meanwhile, let me ask you some questions. George Jones, who was his favorite singer? Did he have one?
You want the new ones or the old ones? Now, the old ones, we're going to go Hank Williams,
Yeah.
Lefty Frizzell, and Bill Monroe.
Yeah, yeah.
And the new ones, I'm going to have to say he loved Jamie Johnson
Yeah.
and Alan Jackson.
Yeah.
So those, to him, though, that was country.
Yeah, that was country music. Jamie
Yes.
Johnson, boy. Yeah, if I were thinking about artists today that seem like they have their influence from listening to George Jones, Jamie Johnson would be one of them. Another one's Larry Fleet, but I don't know that Larry was anywhere around when George was around.
I don't think so.
Yeah. So, Morgan Wallen is in that country vein. And so, yeah.
Well, he's as wild as George was.
See, I've even described that a couple of times.
scary,
That this one might be going down that George Jones path. So, were you afraid when you got involved with George? Were you afraid that some of those stories you had heard, maybe? Well, you said you didn't know much about George when you met him.
No.
So you didn't hear any of the wild, crazy stories.
No, but it didn't take them long to come to me.
Yeah, yeah.
But, some of them I believe, some of them I didn't. And I'm the person that if they say, you did this last week, well, I have to see it or know that you did it. I don't want to hear hearsay.
Yeah, you don't want to hear rumors. You want to hear truth.
Nope.
Speaking of which, and I know this might be a little painful, but I'm going to bring it up because a lot of people have seen the series on Showtime, George and Tammy. Have you seen it?
No. And you know what? I don't want to see it. I know that Kathy Sherrill and her mom, before she died, they interviewed them.
Mm-hmm.
And Kathy was real upset because they used nothing. As Kathy said, I told the truth. None of that was in the movie.
Gotcha.
And I know that they got it from people that
may not have had the best interest of the truth.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and Georgette was too little to know any of that stuff. So it's all hearsay.
So Georgette is the daughter, George and Tammy's daughter. Yeah.
Too little to know any of this stuff.
Yeah.
So I feel like that, bless their hearts, they had to make a a series, so they turned it into Hollywood.
They turned it into Hollywood. I've only seen I think there are 6 episodes. I've only seen 3. I've seen good reviews about the actor who played your husband, George, and they've said that he did a really good job.
I have no idea.
Since I never met George myself, I couldn't tell you either. That's one of my big regrets, that I never had an opportunity to meet him. I think I would have loved him. I think I would have absolutely loved him.
You would have loved him. He was very bashful.
See, which people wouldn't think that he was bashful. But maybe that's why he turned to alcohol.
And funny.
Exactly.
He had a great sense of humor.
Oh, gosh, yes. He was a funny man.
Yeah.
At one time, he was always in a hurry. If we're going to go somewhere, we're going. I'm like, yeah, somebody that was no-show and you're already wanting to be there on time. But we were going to go eat at Cracker Barrel one morning, and he was out there honking the horn. I hate when he would honk that horn for me to come out. So I wasn't dressed. So he kept honking the horn. I'm thinking, I'll fix you on this one. So I go out there in my bra and panties. Get in the car.
Get in the car.
Does he take you to Cracker Barrel?
Oh, listen. You know where we live. That was a long way from that house all the way to that front gate. And I'm like, oh, Lord, please, let him look over here. Well, he finally did before we got through that gate. And he went, my gosh, honey, go in there and put some clothes on. And he never honked that horn again.
That's funny. Lesson learned.
Right,
Lesson learned.
right.
One thing you were telling me during one of the breaks, and then we'll end this interview here in just a moment, but you were telling me that he didn't realize as many people loved him as loved him.
No.
How can that be?
He didn't. I mean, it was just, I used to say, so-and-so wants to come over. Now, honey, I don't know what they want to come for. They don't even like me. George, they wouldn't come over here if they didn't
like you.
And he was always, if you ever saw him at an event somehow or another, if I got him there, he always shied away. He was always way in the back. And he just never thought anybody cared that much about him. And that's what I said is that, because, see, he had been so drunk and on so many drugs and did so many people wrong and beat up so many people in his time that I guess he thought that they didn't care anything about him.
Yeah.
But they all did. And even with this, we did a tribute to George in Huntsville, Alabama.
Yeah, yeah.
And we had 32 artists there.
32. Holy smokes.
Sold out in like 2 days. And it was just wonderful. All those people, they never said to me when I called them, no, we can't do it. No, I'm not coming. They were there.
It was a great concert.
Yeah, ecstatic about being there. So it's called it was the Playing Possum concert.
It turned into a film, yes. And it will be one day only around the country at 1,000 different screens on October 17th. Fathomevents.com is where folks can get tickets.
Fathomevents.com. If anybody wants to watch this concert,
come join us.
It will be playing at, you said, at the Franklin Theater, not Franklin Theater, but Cool Springs.
Yeah.
What is it? Is it AMC Theater there?
Yes.
Yeah, and Nancy will be there. So,
okay.
And
all right.
I'll be there, and we'll just have a great time.
You'll do the little, question and answer kind of
Maybe
thing before, and then play the concert.
Seeing, that's for sure.
You just pull it up and type in your zip code, right?
I think so, right.
And then it'll tell you where it's playing.
It'll tell you where it's playing.
Thoroughbred Theaters in Franklin, and October 17th.
October 17th.
Two showings actually that day, 4 and 7, right?
That's awesome.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I definitely want to see that. But you say that George wouldn't believe that many artists would come out and want to pay tribute to him.
No, there's no way he would believe that.
Pam, there's a great story. We put it in the book, but you don't want to miss this. Nancy, tell Pamela about just before George passed away, you were in the hospital room with him. And he'd almost been in a coma for the last couple of days. And I don't want to tell the story. You go ahead.
Well, if I can do it, I probably cry, but I'll try it.
I'll cry with you. Go right ahead.
I was rubbing his feet, and talking to the doctor and rubbing his feet. And all of a sudden, that deep voice he had, it said, well, hello there. I'm like, oh, my God, this is great. And then he said, I've been looking for you. My name is George Jones. And he was gone.
He passed away. Who do you think he was talking to, though?
God. And that would be his mannerism. That's exactly George Jones.
Well, you just slayed me. I can't say another word after that. Oh, my gosh.
It's a cool story.
Wow.
Though. Wow.
Wow. All right.
And that's what this book is all about. We want people to see the real George Jones. We want to see the hope and the inspiration that he brought to a lot of people.
And the redemption.
Yes.
The redemption, right? Of somebody who lived a hard life, who was running from a lot of demons that found salvation.
For real.
And then when he took his last breath, was talking to God.
Yes.
I've been looking for you.
My name is George Jones.
All right, it's 2:20. Got to take a break on that. You just slayed me. Thank you guys for being with me. We'll go ahead and end it here. October 17th at the Thoroughbred Theater there in Cool Springs, Franklin, playing Possum Concert, where 32 artists give a tribute to the man, George Jones. And then the book, of course, is out now. So if you want to buy it, Playing Possum, written by Nancy Jones. Nancy, it's so good to see you. It's been 30 some odd years since I've seen you. So it's really nice to have you here. And of course, Ken Abraham, I've known he's my Sunday school teacher, y'all. And so glad to have you in the studio
Just
as
check
well.
And make sure you're behaving here.
I'm trying. It is time for a break, though. 615-737-9986. You can call or super text as well. If you have some George Jones stories you want to tell, I'll be happy to pass those along. We'll be back in a moment on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
First Lady Jill Biden tests positive for COVID-19, United Flights airline glitch, and a shortage of CDL drivers around the nation. Those stories coming up 2:30 right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you very much, Mac Maury. Now, Mac, may I ask you, and I mean nothing by this, but I don't see you as a traditional country music fan. Am I wrong or right?
No, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. So, but are you familiar with George Jones?
Familiar, yes.
Gotcha. Well, may I, and again, I mean
Please.
nothing by it, may I introduce you
Please.
to the greatest country song ever?
She told him you forget me too.
Now, Belle knows the song.
I watched the years pass slowly by. She still preyed upon mine.
I'm not sure I have time to play it up to the hook.
When half crazy, now then, he still loved me through it all, hoping she'd come back again.
I don't think I have time to play all of it. Do it.
Found love letters by his bed, dated 1962. He had underlined in red every single I love. I went to see my friend today. Oh, and I didn't see no tear. All dressed up to go away. First time I'd seen smiling years.
Here we go.
He stopped loving her. They placed a wreath upon his door. Soon they'll carry him away. He stopped loving her today.
All right. Thank you for indulging me. I don't know if you get the hook because I was too busy talking, but he stopped loving her today. The reason why he stopped loving her is because he died. He loved her till the day that he died. And if you look at any poll, Rolling Stone will do these polls. Billboard will do these polls. And when the question is asked, what is the best country song ever? He Stopped Loving Her Today is usually number one. Ever, by George Jones. I don't think there's anybody else except for Dolly Parton that has done this song justice. But George Jones. So there you go.
That was beautiful.
What'd you think?
That was great. What a voice.
Oh.
Wow.
The possum, y'all, the possum. I have a lot of people who are saying, what a great interview. That was so inspirational. Here's one that says, growing up in Brentwood, I'd see George and Nancy all the time. They always talked to me, treated me like we were lifelong friends and neighbors. He said, I'd see No Show 1 through 7 on the road and honk, and they'd smile and wave. Most down-to-earth superstar I've ever met. And those are the stories I've heard for years. Go buy the book. We'll change subjects, but this is kind of an escape from all the crazy that's going on in the world. But again, I think the moral of the story is it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how young you are. You can always, always change your life. You can turn it around, and God is there waiting for you to do that. It's 2:30. It's time for news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
30 minutes after the hour of 2 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 87 degrees and a little cloudy, a little rainy right now in Nashville. Full weather forecast in 2 minutes. First Lady Jill Biden has tested positive for COVID. The White House says President Biden tested negative for it last night and today, and then will test regularly this week and monitor for symptoms. Here's White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre today at her briefing.
Anytime we're around any of the principals, we do test. That has been the way we have moved forward for the past almost 2 years here. So that has not changed. No White House protocol is going to be changing.
And Karine Jean-Pierre said the president will be masking up while indoors. United Airlines had a technology glitch today, preventing United flights from taking off for a while. Alex Stone.
United isn't specifying what the technology issue, as it calls it, was. We understand the computers had to be rebooted and some critical system came back online. For about an hour, all United flights were held at their airports, unable to take off. Planes waited at United hubs like San Francisco, Denver, Chicago, Houston, and Newark. Any planes that were already in the air were not impacted. Now the airline says it's working to get everything back on schedule. 211 United flights were delayed because of the issue.
And right now in Tennessee, News 2 says that state officials have put together an initiative to address the shortage of CDL drivers. The American Trucking Association reported that the trucking industry faces a shortage of 78,000 drivers at current vacancies, which is the second largest number on record. And just in the state of Tennessee, the demand for the position is estimated to increase by 20% by 2030. The website truckingtennessee.com is supposed to make CDL training more accessible for certain Tennessee colleges of applied technology. And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 2:36. I am Pamela Furr in for Matt Murphy. Glad to have you with us today. Going on right now, President Joe Biden is awarding the Medal of Honor to a Vietnam veteran who, by the way, is from East Tennessee. He's from Chattanooga, I do believe. In fact, can you pull up a little bit of that audio just for a minute? Let's listen in to see what the president's saying.
Then Lieutenant Taylor would go above and beyond the call of duty, quite literally. June 18th, 1968, it was pitch black, no moon, no stars, no light beyond the glow of Lieutenant Taylor's cockpit controls when he heard a whisper come through his radio. We're surrounded. We're surrounded. That's what he heard. The call had come from a 4-man Army Patrol unit just northeast of Saigon, a unit that included Sergeant David Hill. Earlier that day, the men had set out to recon the area, but in the dark, the men found themselves in the middle of the Viet Cong stronghold. Nearly 100 enemy soldiers now encircled their unit. The men picked up the radio and made a call. It was no longer a recon mission. They needed a rescue mission. Without hesitation, Lieutenant Taylor and his co-pilot began racing toward them. Over the radio, he laid out the game plan. He would use his Cobra to give the unit cover until a rescue helicopter could extract them. There was just one simple problem. It was pitch black. Lieutenant Taylor couldn't determine exactly where they were. So he asked his men to launch a flare, a move that revealed their location to him, but also to the enemy. Lieutenant Taylor knew the risk, but he was ready. Over the radio, he said, "Let's get to work." The flare went up, and the fight was on. The enemy fire lit up the night. Lieutenant Taylor and his co-pilot dove down, positioning their Cobra nearly parallel with the Viet Cong fighters. They flew dangerously low levels for more than a half an hour, firing thousands of rounds of rockets to cover the ground on which the men were. Then Lieutenant Taylor heard a sound. Not only meant one thing, his helo was hit. And then it was hit again, and again, and again. At that point, according to Army standards, he could have left the fight. But Lieutenant Taylor had his own sacred standard. Quote, "You never leave a man on the ground," end of quote.
All right, you can go ahead.
An escape route
so that's the story. I'm going to tell you why I had him plot this down here in just a second. But that's the story of Captain Larry Taylor. He'll be the 33rd Tennessean to receive the Medal of Honor, which is the highest military decoration a person can receive for their valor in combat. Taylor distinguished himself while serving as one of the first Cobra helicopter pilots during the Vietnam War. I'm going to tell you, though, and this is a great honor for him. He's alive. He will be receiving it here in just a moment. It's not posthumously. He's still with us. But when I'm hearing, gosh, I'm going to get emotional on this. When I hear out of that man's mouth, Joe Biden, never leave one behind, that flew all over me. That's why I asked Belle to pot it down, to turn it down. Never leave one behind, coming from the man that left quite a few behind in Afghanistan. Never leave them behind. I'm appalled that you had the audacity to stand there and will put the Medal of Honor around a true hero who knew what those words meant. I don't even feel like I can call Joe Biden a commander-in-chief. He's only commander-in-chief because of a technicality. Technically, he is. If I were you, I would have handed over the duties of putting that medal on this man to one of your joint chiefs or the Defense Department head. Because Joe Biden is a disgrace. Never leave one behind. You don't even know what those words mean. I'm not even sure Joe Biden knows where he is. And I'm not joking. You should see the look on his face. He's just barely reading the words. I heard a few stumbles in there. Look, I stumble. I get that. He looks like you could just one little push, with your pinky finger, and he'd topple over. And again, the words, never leave one behind.
Want to see my temper? Keep going.
My redheaded temper's about to flare. Oh, that bothers me.
I did not say that. I did not say that.
There was, in fact, I'll probably talk about this tomorrow. There are widows, if you will, Gold Star wives who are speaking out about what happened in Afghanistan. Those 13 who were killed in the suicide bombing, and how they don't even want to look at Joe Biden. They don't even want to talk to Joe Biden. When Joe Biden has tried to reach out to talk to them, they don't want to talk to him. Ugh. By the way, not only is Captain Taylor the 33rd Tennessean to receive the Medal of Honor, he's the 6th soldier with ties to Chattanooga who have received the Medal of Honor. He was also awarded 61 combat decorations, including 44 air medals for his service. He was can I say it? He was a badass. I said it. After being engaged by enemy...
For gosh sake, watch your language.
After being engaged by enemy fire 340 times and forced down 5 times, Taylor concluded his 4 years... He was only in the military 4 years. 4 years of military service with the 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment in West Germany. He operated a roofing company in Chattanooga before he retired with his wife in Signal Mountain. And there he is. He's about to get the medal draped across his chest. He's got to be, I can't tell who's older, Joe Biden or this gentleman. But what an honor. It's the highest that you could receive. I think it's fantastic. All right, 615-737-9986 is the telephone number if you'd like to call. You can super text as well. It's just been an interesting day, to say the least. Let's talk a little bit about what's happening in the world of money and in the world of unions and in the world of possible strikes, because this could have an effect on us if the UAW decides to strike. And we're just a week away from it happening. A 46% pay raise, a 32-hour week with 40 hours of pay. Who can't get behind that? And a restoration of traditional pensions. Those are the demands that the United Auto Workers Union have pressed on General Motors, Stellantis, and Ford. Demands that they even say are audacious, but it's edging closer to a strike. The contract ends September the 14th. And after the 14th, if they don't find some sort of way to negotiate, they're going on strike. Now, what the UAW says is that these automakers are making billions and billions of dollars in profit, and that they could start handing down some of that to their workers by raising their pay, getting their pensions back, etc. The automakers argue that its demands are unrealistic at a time of fierce competition from Tesla and lower-wage foreign automakers as the world shifts from internal combustion engines to electric vehicles. There's a wide gulf between the sides, and it could mean a strike against one or more of the automakers, which could send already inflated vehicle prices even higher. 146,000 UAW members. I thought it was actually higher than that. But according to the Associated Press, it's 146,000 UAW members. By the way, more and more unions have been striking lately, right? Isn't Hollywood? Aren't they still on strike? Can I ask a personal question? Has anybody noticed? I hate to say that. I haven't noticed. Now I'm waiting for Yellowstone to finally finish, but it went so, off the beaten path with its storyline that if it doesn't, it doesn't. But that's I don't notice. But I don't watch network television anymore. And I really don't. And this has given me time to, read a book. It's also given me time to binge watch other shows that I've been putting off or what. I don't know that anybody's noticed. There have been 200 something strikes in this country this year alone. Shawn Fain, who won the UAW's presidency this spring in the first direct election by members, has set high expectations and has assured union members that they can achieve significant gains if they are willing to walk the picket lines. He even gave a speech yesterday. It was a Labor Day parade crowd in Detroit. And by the way, make no bones about it, if they strike, you're talking Detroit shut down. Wouldn't be the first time. Fain said that if companies don't come up with a fair contract come September 14th, we're going to take action to get it by any means necessary. And that means walking. Fain has characterized the contract talks with Detroit automakers as a form of war between billionaires and ordinary middle-class workers. Last month, in an act of showmanship, Fain condemned a contract proposal from Stellantis as trash and tossed a copy of it into the wastebasket. He said where it belongs. He should have set it on fire, really, if he really wanted to make a spectacle. So that's where we are there. Another strike could happen. You would have more people unemployed, more people walking the picket lines, more people striking in the middle of Bidenomics, where they're having obviously they're fighting on behalf of, I'm not a big union fan, I'm going to tell you that right now. But if what they're fighting is for more money, it's because they're having a hard time paying their bills as it is. Now you want them to strike in the middle of Bidenomics. That's going to hurt. That's going to hurt a lot of people. 2:49. I'm Pamela Furr in for Matt Murphy on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
A possibly dangerous meeting between North Korea and Russia. Gloria Johnson running for U.S. Senate. First Lady Jill Biden tests positive for COVID-19. And the Vols are in the top 10. Those stories and more coming up 3 o'clock right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I don't even want to talk about college football.
Woo, come on. It's only just beginning.
Well, here's the thing. I'll say this real quick. Here's the thing. I put money on it, and I did some four-leg parlays, and Alabama did good by me. Tennessee did good by me. There was another one in there that did good by me, and I can't remember what it is. You know who failed me was LSU. If it weren't for LSU, I would have won $1,000.
Oh.
Yeah. I didn't lose $1,000.
Of course not.
Did I hear you laughing at me, Brian Wilson?
I'm just, when you said I put money on the game, I said, well, this is probably not going to end well.
No, it did not. I could have been a contender. I could have had $1,000. So LSU screwed me. So the heck with you, LSU. But see, that's what it changes how you watch football when you put money on it.
Well, I guess that's true. I never ever gamble ever.
Ever.
No, I just don't. And I have a lot of things that I'd like to spend my money on, and that's not one of them.
Well,
Guitars, maybe I'd spend some.
I was hoping to win enough that I could pay my property taxes this year. And nope, that's out the window. So I won't tell you how much money I lost. Well, it wasn't a whole lot. I mean, I put $50 on two, 25 on one.
You're not spending the milk money there, so you're good.
No,
yeah.
So it 25 on one 4-leg parlay and 25 on the other. So I lost. Yeah. But LSU killed me in both of them. And I thought I had it.
So close.
So close, but yet so far. All right. Well, Brian Wilson, good to talk to you. What do you have coming up on the show today?
Well, I'm going to focus on a couple of things, and it has to do with politicians' ages. There is a Wall Street Journal poll that came out that just absolutely annihilates Biden for his age and his fragility. Mm-hmm. And then we also, on our side of the equation, we got Mitch McConnell, who's had a couple of freeze-ups. He came to the floor of the Senate today, and one wondered what he was going to say. Well, it was pretty much business as usual and no indication that he's ready to step down. Both those stories coming up in the first hour of The Drive.
All right. Thank you very much. That is Brian Wilson with The Drive, 3:05 this afternoon. Thank you for being with me today. If you missed the Nancy Jones interview, you can go back later and listen to it on our Super Talk TV. I'll see you tomorrow in this same slot, filling in for Matt Murphy on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.